His touch awakened something hidden inside me, a stirring of a spirit long asleep. His kisses carried a gentleness and chill, like a soft breeze gliding across my skin. When he enclosed his hands around my waist, it was never just physical. It was as if he could see through the defenses I had carefully built. The woman buried beneath years of emptiness and quiet despair, that he wasn't my partner. He wasn't even supposed to notice me like that. But he did every single time my mother stepped out, sometimes only to grab groceries, sometimes to see her sister. It happened. At first, it was unintended. A look that lasted too long. A brush of his hand on my back that made me stiffen and question if I'd imagined it. But I hadn't. He knew. I knew. And it didn't stop. Each time it grew heavier, darker. That it's unsettling how you can exist under one roof with someone, share food, smile across the table, and still suffocate under secrets so thick they crush you even in your sleep. That I tried to fight it. I told myself it was wrong. I told myself it would fade. But the harder I pushed it away, the deeper I sank into him, into this distorted bond that felt forbidden, yet satisfied a hunger in me I hadn't known was starving. Years later, I carry the weight of every touch, every whisper, every falsehood. And tonight, I'm ready to unveil it. Before I begin, thank you to everyone who subscribed to this channel. You are the reason I can keep sharing these raw, personal, emotional confessions. If you're new or watching without subscribing, please press that button. Your support means more than I can express. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. Now, let me take you back to where it first began. My name is Rachel. I'm 33 and live in a quiet suburb in upstate New York. On the surface, my life looks picture perfect. Blonde hair, polite smile, a neat home. I work part-time at a wellness center and keep a journal as a habit. Nothing about me screams chaos. But people like me, we bury storms beneath silence. When I was 24, my father passed away after a long illness. My mother, strong-minded and proud, silently broke. Within 2 years, she remarried. His name was Richard. Gentle, calm, attentive to my mother. No children of his own. He treated me more like a companion than a stepdaughter. At first, we were polite yet distant. I respected him, but nothing beyond that. Then, things shifted. That it began small. He sought my opinions, movies, politics, wine. He made me coffee when I came over. He'd brush by me in the kitchen, praise my looks in ways that sent my pulse racing. It should have repulsed me, but it didn't. It awoke something fragile in me just after a broken relationship. My confidence in ruins. Richard saw me, and I liked it. One night, my mother had gone to her sister's. I was watching a crime show in the living room when Richard sat down beside me, closer than usual. The silence wasn't awkward. It was electric. Then he leaned in, not rushed, not rough, just near enough to make me realize what he wanted. He paused, waiting for me to retreat, but I didn't. Maybe emptiness, maybe curiosity, or some twisted need to feel desired again. I kissed him back. The following morning, I despised myself. I avoided him and my mother. Richard behaved as though nothing had happened, which only made it worse. It made me doubt if it had been real, but it was no dream. Later that week, when my mother went to the pharmacy, he sought me out again, and I allowed him that it wasn't love. It was something else, a toxic blend of desire, secrecy, control, and guilt that I noticed my mother's stares during dinner. She seemed to sense something, but never voiced it. I felt exposed, like the betrayal hovered in the air. Still, I kept returning. Stopping seemed impossible, that it wasn't affection anymore. It was control, fear, obsession, that I knew it couldn't last. I knew the fallout would come, but I never imagined how violent it would be, or how completely the truth would destroy everything. The night my mother discovered the truth, my whole world crumbled, that I knew I had crossed a boundary that never should have existed. But forbidden things are like venom. You taste them once, and it becomes nearly impossible to pull away. Richard turned into my fixation. Not because I loved him or wanted to tear lives apart, but because for the first time in years, someone made me feel visible, desired, alive. The guilt pressed harder with every stolen kiss, and so did the craving that my mother stayed unaware. Or so I kept convincing myself. She went on as if nothing had shifted, still trusting, still warm with both of us. She never asked why Richard and I sat too close, why I came over so often. Then one Saturday, everything changed. That my mother left for a women's retreat. I stayed behind to help Richard clean out the garage. The perfect pretense. The instant she drove away, it was as though a switch turned. His touch on my hand lingered. And before I knew it, we were in the basement on an old couch, the air charged with betrayal, heavy with silence. That it felt wrong, but this time reckless too. Resting against his chest afterward, staring at cobwebs stretched across the ceiling. I wondered how much longer until it all collapsed. That night, I never slept. Every creak in the house sent my pulse racing. My mother's voice echoed inside me. Her faith, her tenderness, the way she had always defended me. The shame no longer hid. It burned inside like iron fire. Weeks slipped past. My mother started asking questions, soft yet pointed. "Rachel, is everything fine with Richard?" I nodded, forced a smile, changed topics. But she sensed it. Point one evening at dinner, she said quietly, "You've been here so much lately. Is everything all right at your own place?" My chest locked. Richard's hand twitched beneath the table. His gaze never lifted that I lied again. I told her I was lonely. I missed them. She reached across, touched my hand, whispered, "You can always come home, baby." That nearly destroyed me. Richard, meanwhile, grew bolder, brushing me in hallways, catching me in corners, whispering words that twisted me with guilt and desire that I tried to pull back, keeping away from their house. But whenever my mother left for errands, Richard would call, plead, beg me to come, and foolishly, I went. The cruelest part, I fed myself lies. Maybe he and my mother were no longer close. Maybe she didn't want him anymore. Maybe I wasn't hurting her. But inside, I always knew better. Then came the moment I never saw coming. Point. One afternoon, I visited. Certain my mother was at a church event. Richard and I stood alone in the kitchen when a sound echoed from the hall. A gasp that I froze. He stepped back instantly. My veins went ice. That my mother stood at the stairs, one hand pressed to her mouth, eyes wide with disbelief. Her purse slid from her shoulder, falling soft against the floor. Time halted. She didn't shout, didn't cry, just stared. Her face shifted from confusion to horror to the cruelest thing, recognition. Then she turned, walked straight out the front door that I couldn't move. My body turned to stone that I looked at Richard, waiting for words, but he had none. The man who always had something sly to say was silent. And in that silence, everything ended that I tried calling my mother that night. She ignored me. I left message after message, sobbed on my apartment floor, my soul breaking apart. Richard sent one text. "We need to talk." I never responded. The days after felt like watching my life dissolve piece by piece. That my mother told everyone of my betrayal. She packed her things, left him, filed for divorce, erased me from her world, blocked my number, cut me away entirely. Richard disappeared. I heard whispers he had left the state. And just like that, I became the woman who shattered her mother's heart. The woman who betrayed the only one who had ever loved her beyond condition. People believe the worst part of betrayal is being caught. It isn't. The worst part is living with what you did, knowing it can never be undone. But there is one more chapter that I in it. You'll see how karma reached me in the most unforeseen way. They say guilt is like rust. It doesn't scream. It eats slowly until the very frame of your soul gives way. That's exactly what happened to me. The betrayal didn't just ruin my mother's marriage. It ruined me, piece by brutal piece. After she found out, she was gone. I tried everything. Letters, calls, waiting at her work. But the woman who once held me like no other looked at me like a stranger. Maybe she was right. Richard, the man I once believed I wanted, turned into nothing but a shadow. I heard nothing after that single final message. Maybe guilt swallowed him whole. Maybe it was cowardice. All I knew was that the man who used me disappeared when the consequences arrived, leaving me alone, with silence, shame, and the endless voices inside my head that my apartment became my prison. I stopped leaving. Friends called. I ignored them. I lost weight. I stopped replying to messages. Even my work slipped away. I couldn't keep going. One morning, I woke on the cold bathroom floor after hours of crying, my face swollen, throat aching. I stared at the ceiling and whispered, "How did I get here?" I was once full of hope, full of dreams and dignity. Now I was the woman who committed the unforgivable point. 3 months later, a letter arrived. No return name, only my address and her unmistakable handwriting that I ripped it open with trembling hands. The letter was brief. "You didn't only destroy my marriage. You destroyed the last thing I thought was pure, my love for you. I hope one day you realize what you've done, and I hope that pain consumes you the way your betrayal consumed me." It wasn't a threat, not even anger that it was final. That letter shattered something inside me I thought had already broken, that I sat on my kitchen floor rereading it, every word piercing me like a blade. She wasn't coming back. Not tomorrow. Not ever. And the worst part, I couldn't fault her that I started therapy, that I knew if I let the guilt control me, it would end me. So one Monday morning, I walked into a stranger's office and poured out my shame, raw and rotten, for someone else to carry. That it was humiliating, but necessary. Week after week, my therapist helped me strip away the layers, revealing that what happened wasn't only lust or temptation, that it was my desperate hunger to feel wanted, my ache for validation, my weakness that it never excused what I did, but it helped me understand the road that led me there. Years slipped by. I moved to another town, found new work, tried to build something quieter. Yet the shadow of betrayal never left me, that I never entered another true relationship. I couldn't. Not while I still felt unworthy of love. Then one evening, after years of silence, the phone rang that my aunt told me my mother had been diagnosed with advanced breast cancer. Not much time left. At my chest caved. My hands shook. That I knew then and there. I had to try one last time. That I flew to the hospital the next morning. That my mother was frail, pale, hair gray, eyes dulled. When I stepped in, she didn't yell, didn't cry, only turned away. That I whispered, "I'm sorry." She gave no reply. That I stayed for hours, telling her about therapy, my regrets, how I would never forgive myself. Before I left, she whispered, "I loved you more than I loved myself. That's why it hurts the most." That was the last thing she ever spoke to me. 2 weeks later, she was gone. That I wasn't invited to the funeral. To this day, I live carrying the aftermath. Betrayal, grief, silence. That I share this not to beg sympathy, but to show how a single choice, a single weakness can destroy everything. To anyone standing at the edge of betrayal, stop and think again. The wound may never close. And even if it does, you may not survive long enough to witness it. Thank you for listening. If this story reached you, please leave your thoughts below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It's your support that allows these raw, painful, deeply human stories to keep living.